Maniga Tatawa Tudyao Ma Wata Suratanwa Lepat Pony Pyotavara Jojo Nepia Lebaga Pita Wata Mother Jawne Jo Sisabido Lepat or Pali Wata Koa A county lepat at a mobile. Do they near Kona little Nene Power? Have an eddy coma to let young Poppy and daughter Sito. Lower a county of Matebo. Ubri Nama Dukkhakhayagami.
Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke about how in a being, the cycles revolve, this vata, the word for cycle in Pali, cause, effect, interconnected and going around. These are called a cycle. So cause and effect are connected, and this cause-effect connection happening again and again is called vata or cycle. For the most part, it's bad. There's a little bit of good, but because this good is subject to change, it is classified as viparinama dukkha. That is, so it is not so good because it changes, and so there's the cycle of kilesas, the cycle of actions, and the cycle of results, kilesa vata, kama vata, and vipaka vata. Avejatana and upadana, these are the cycle of kilesas. Aveja does not know the Four Noble Truths, or it knows them in the wrong way, and thus not seeing the faults of sense experiences. One wants them. So wants to see good things, hear good things, smell good things, taste, touch, and so on, all good things. One wants life, and one wants these good things. So when one gets what one wants, one also thinks, this is I. One grasps onto it firmly. And this grasping is called upadana. And there's the craving and grasping for sense pleasures, kamupadana, and then seeing them incorrectly, seeing them as a self, seeing them with wrong view, detupadana, the grasping to view. For ordinary people, this occurs every second of the time. And because it happens, these kilesas, avijja, tana, and upadana, then actions result. And if one's mindset is good, one's basic mental attitude is good, then good actions, or one does good actions. There's a factor in the mind that urges one to act, which is cetana, intention. And when the intention, or cetana, is good, then good results will come out. And on the other hand, if one's mindset, one's basic mental attitude is not good, if there's an unwholesome cetana urging the actions, then there will be bad results that come from this bad intention. So these kilesas cause karma actions, and actions bring results. So these results that come, vipaka, they are based on avijja and tana. They have this basic element to them. And when this results in a new life, that means that avijja, ignorance, and tanha, craving, arise again. And again, actions are performed. And thus these cycles revolve. So this revolving around in these cycles is not good. Therefore, they're called dukkha. And this is vata dukkha, the suffering of the rounds. Where do the three cycles revolve? They occur continuously. Where? They occur in beings. If we just look in an ordinary sense, that's true. They occur in beings. But because we are speaking about ultimate reality and true Dhamma, they don't occur in a person. They occur in what is called samsara. The word samsara in this, the part sara, means to go, that it's going. And sam means continuously, without a break. So samsara is this continuously going. So what is it that is continuously going? It is the elements of the base, the striker, and the spark that happen in every seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and so on. When the eye sees, when the ear hears, when the nose smells, when the tongue tastes, when the body touches something, when there's thinking, when there's blinking, opening and closing the eyes. In all these, there is a base, a striker, and a spark. The base is the receptor element. In seeing, there's the eye. And the visible object is the striker. This comes and strikes the eye, and as a result, there's seeing consciousness. One knows the sight, contact, and feeling. These are the spark. So there are these three elements of the base, the sense base, the sense object, and the consciousness. So there's no being who sees. There's no man who sees, no woman who sees. They're just these elements. And in hearing, too, there's no hearer. There's no woman or man who's hearing. There's the ear, and there's the sound wave. The sound wave strikes the ear. And if that happens, then the hearing arises. There's the sense of the sound meets the ear. The sound meets the mind at the ear. They contact. And then there's also the feeling. If it's a pleasant sound, then it's good to hear. It feels good to hear. And if it's a bad sound, then it feels unpleasant to hear. And some sounds are neither good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, so they have a subtle quality to them. So in this, there are just the elements of hearing, consciousness, contact, feeling. So there's physical elements involved, the ear base and the sound wave. And the consciousness, contact, and feeling that is the spark that arises when these two meet is mental. Where is there a person? And when smelling happens, there's the nose. The fragrance comes to the nose on the air, and it strikes the nose base. And then if it's a fragrance, it may be a fragrance or it may be a foul, rotten smell. But whichever it is at that moment, smelling consciousness occurs. One knows the smell. There's contact and feeling. In the moment of tasting, in the mouth, on the tongue, there are receptors that are spread all over the tongue. And there are 6 kinds of flavors that one can sense. Sweet, sour, salty, bland, hot, bitter. And these come and strike the tongue. The taste and the mind meet at the tongue. So there's phassa or contact. And when the taste is the taste of chilies, then if one doesn't like chilies, then that's a bad taste and there's a bad feeling. And when one likes chilies, then it's a good feeling that comes. So these are called elements, the base, the sense base like the tongue, the striker, which is the sense object like the taste, and the spark, the consciousness, contact and feeling that arise. These all have their own nature. They bear their own nature, and thus in Pali they are called dhatu. And the word that is used in English for these are elements. When there's touch occurring, touch can be perceived almost all over the body. And what is perceived, what can be touched, is the combination of earth element, the element of temperature, and the element of air. These three combined make up a tangible object. And so some things are hard or coarse or gentle, or they may be hot, cold, warm, or tense or relaxed. So these are the qualities that can be felt. And if something that is hard strikes the body, then one knows the hardness. And if the striker that strikes is a bad feeling. If it's an unpleasant contact, then there will be a bad feeling. If something good, then it will be a good feeling. And the mind and the tangible object meet at the body base. So there's also contact. In this, there are just the elements of the base, the striker, and the spark. When thinking or imagining also, it's similar. The Buddha said that thoughts, imagination, and so on is perceived in the heart. There's a place in the heart which is capable of receiving thoughts, images, and so on. And the mind object strikes the heart base. So this, what is called the mind door, the other sense objects are called sense doors. The eye door, the eye base is also called the eye door. The ear is also called the ear door. For the mind, what is called the mind door is based on the heart. This is a mental thing. And that is what perceives the object. So although with mental objects, one is not directly seeing or hearing, smelling, tasting, or touching, it's as though one is seeing. It's as though one hears, one smells. It's as though one is tasting. It's as though one is touching. And when one imagines the past, it is these things that occur in the mind vividly as though they're happening really. But in this, there's just the elements of the base, the striker, and the spark. And these elements go round and round, revolve, and thus they're called samsara. So it's said that mind and body interconnected happening is samsara. And in samsara, the three cycles are also revolving, and therefore this is called samsara vata dukkha, the rounds of suffering in samsara. Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke using an analogy of a tree, and he's going to speak about this again. There's a tree, and it sprouts in the ground. It's alive. And being alive, what it means that it gets what it needs. It needs to have the earth and water from the earth, water, and also in present-day terminology, it also needs oxygen. So trees need these in order to live. And if the ground is completely dry, there's no moisture at all, the tree will not be able to sprout. It sprouts in earth that is moist. So one should accept this. And there is a seed for a new tree that that comes. Trees have seeds in different ways. Some trees are wood trees. Some trees have fruit. And when there's a fruit tree, it has a bud, and the bud blossoms, and then there's fruit. So within the fruit, there's a seed. And the tree has to have sap flowing through it. It has to have the element of moisture going all the way through it, which is called sap. It must have this in order to bear fruit. And the fruit ripens, and it leaves behind a seed for a new tree to grow. So in a human, what is to a human the way sap is to a living tree is the cycle of kilesas, kilesa vata. This is something that we should accept. And there is a seed, and this is like the actions that we do. Because of the sap of the kilesas, there are actions performed by a person that result in a new life. So this is something that one should accept. Just as with a tree, there are good seeds and there are bad seeds, leading to good healthy trees and bad trees. So too, in the actions that one does, there are the seeds, good and bad, which are capable of creating new life. So what is it that makes the sap of a tree thrive so that it goes throughout the tree? The sap can exist because of the earth and the water, and also because of the air. And that is what makes a tree able to have sap. So in a human, it's the happiness of sense pleasures that makes the sap of the kilesas thrive. Because people want various good sense pleasures, and so people work to get these. And in one's doing so, the happiness that one gets from the sense pleasures is like the earth, the water, and the air. Those three elements support the sap in a tree. And the happiness of sense pleasures in a human being that makes the kilesas thrive so that they're healthy. And this is what the teachers have explained in the text. So this is how the comparison goes. A person is being compared to a tree. And within the tree there is sap that keeps it alive, and so too in a human there is the sap of the kilesas, avidya, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging. And because the tree is fortified with sap, it bears fruit which has a seed. And that seed is like the wholesome and unwholesome actions which are performed. based on the kilesas. And the seed, in terms of a tree, the seed results in a new tree. And in a person, the actions that one performs, kusala and akusala, wholesome and unwholesome, they result in a new life. And the sap of the kilesas, avijja, tanha, and upadana, is supported by the happiness of sense pleasures. And this is something that we should accept. And for ordinary people, most people, this is the case. So there's kilesa, kama, vipaka. These three are called the cycles. Kilesa vata, kama vata, and vipaka vata. These three. And avijja, tanha, upadana. These three are the cycle of defilements, the cycle of clinging. There's not knowing or knowing in the wrong way. And there's craving for good things and then grasping onto them. Grasping on to them too with the thought of I. So this is the cycle of kilesas, kilesa vata. And for an ordinary person, the only relief that one gets is while one is asleep. The remaining time, because one doesn't observe the mind and matter, which are the truth of suffering, then one doesn't know them, or one knows them in the wrong way. And this is what happens every second of the time, that one doesn't observe. With ordinary people, of whatever class they are, whether poor or middle class or wealthy, whether they're educated or uneducated, whether they are a woman, a man, or a monk, no matter what, if for an ordinary person, avijja is happening, ignorance is happening. And if it happens one time every second, then this ignorance is occurring 60 times in a minute. In 1 hour, then it will be 3,600 times. So one can imagine in a whole day how many instances, how many moments there would be of ignorance occurring. It would be in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So these moments of avijja collect, and they make a big layer of delusion, moha, called moha patala in Pali. And this becomes a thick layer, even thicker than the Great Wall of China. So where there is ignorance, avijja, there will be craving. Craving follows. And similarly, it develops. So there is avijja, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging. And these aren't good, and they just revolve around in a cycle. So this is not good, and it is also evident. So due to the kilesas, when one has a good mindset, basic good heart, then one will perform ordinary wholesome deeds. And when one's mindset is in error, then one will perform unwholesome deeds. Lobha, dosa, and moha, greed, hatred, and delusion, will lead in a series of akusalas, unwholesome actions. So every second of the time, this cycle of kamma, cycle of actions, is revolving. And then there will be results and secondary results. So when there is a new life occurring, the base element will contain avijja and tanha. So these seeds will be carried on into the new life. And this is why This is called vata dukkha, the suffering which is revolving continuously. So there are bad deeds, things that are bad to do. Killing, stealing, committing various kinds of sexual misdeeds. And then these are physical misdeeds. And then there's things that should not be said, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and speech that is just a waste of time, totally meaningless. And then, so those are verbal things that should not be said. And there's also a mental level of misdeeds, desiring to take what belongs to other people by force, by illegal means, wanting to harm or destroy others, and thinking that whatever one does, it doesn't make any difference. There's no result to our actions. When we die, it's all over. So these all are called duccaritas in Pali, and this means that they are bad to do. They're misdeeds or things that are bad to do. Avijja, ignorance, does not see what is wrong with these, and therefore it thinks it's good to kill, it's good to steal, it's good to commit sexual misdeeds. And this seeing in this way, in this wrong way, is mecha patipati avijja. So ignorance does not see what is wrong with these misdeeds of the body, speech, or mind. And therefore, one wants to do them. So this is craving, or tanha. And because of that, one does things. And therefore, this is kamma, actions result. So when one is not free of kilesas, then results will come. Not seeing the faults, one commits actions, and those actions bring bad results. So there's the cycle of kilesas, bringing about actions, which then bring results. And the bad results which come don't come to us from anybody else, or they're not done to us by anybody else. One does this to oneself. And the cause, if we examine to see what is the cause, it is that without developing the Eightfold Path, the cyclic suffering, the suffering of the cycles will keep on going. If one doesn't walk along this great path of satipatthana, then one will go the wrong way, and one will, because one doesn't know that it is wrong, then one will do actions such as killing, stealing, committing sexual misdeeds. One will lie, speak harshly, tell things which are slanderous, talk in a frivolous way. And one will want to get what belongs to others by the wrong means. One will want to harm others, and one will think things that are mistaken, such as everything's over when we die. Nothing happens after death. These are wrong view. So when one doesn't keep the 5 precepts, this is the coarse level, the grossest level of ignorance, craving, and clinging, avijja, tanha, and upadana. If one lets the mind go, then it indulges in seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching good things. And so if we just let it go, then it is involved in mental misdeeds, and this brings results. So when one, the physical actions that one keeps of not keeping the 5 precepts, also this bears karmic results. Also, just letting the mind go but not undertaking physical or verbal actions, this is also bears results. And when the mind, when one is not able to control the mind, then the misdeeds that one performs mentally, this is manokamma, mental karma. Although the mind may be clean, if knowledge does not arise, then there will still be the seeds of the kilesas, the latent kilesas or anusya kilesas. So one has to work to develop knowledge, starting from seeing the discernment between mind and matter. But so one needs to develop the practices of sila, samadhi, and panya. But instead of doing this, if one doesn't practice the trainings of sila, morality, of samadhi, of concentration, of panya, of wisdom, if these are not practiced, then the cycle of kilesas will not be cut off. Without developing the Eightfold Path, the suffering of the cycles will keep on going. So these cycles of the kilesas, the defilements of the actions and results, is what is happening for ordinary people. Those who don't know the practice of satipatthana, or who know but don't practice it, whatever person it is, if they're not walking along the satipatthana path, then also if they're not always guarding the mind with vigilant mindfulness by observing it every arising, then the Eightfold Path is not being developed at all. And therefore the cycles of kilesas, of kamas, and vipaka results are revolving. And thus, on a gross level, the gross kilesas of avidya, tanha, and upadana will be occurring on a transgressive level. And the kilesas that occur in the mind, the pariyotana kilesas or obsessive kilesas, this will be occurring on a medium level. And the seeds of the kilesas, which are latent, these also will be there. So the cycle of kilesas will not be cut off. The kilesas will be occurring on these three levels. And thus there will be actions. Because the cycle of kilesas is not being cut off, the cycle of actions, good or bad, will continue. So if, on the other hand, one develops the Eightfold Path, knowing the correct practice, and then practicing with respect, meticulously, and with continuity, then in each moment of observation, the cycle of kilesas will be cut off. When knowledge arises, then there won't be any actions done that will result, there won't be actions done, either good or bad, that will result in a new life. So it is said that developing the Eightfold Path, the cycle of sufferings cut off for good. If one develops the Eightfold Path each second of the time, so that knowledge arises, then gross ignorance, craving, and clinging will be cut off. And also the medium level, the obsessive level of ignorance, craving, and clinging will be cut off. And also the refined, the latent ignorance, craving, and clinging, these will all be cut off. So just as without sap flowing through the tree cannot live, there will be no tree. And without a living tree, without the tree, there will be no new seeds. So too, with the yogi, when the sap of the kilesas does not flow. So today Sayadaw has spoke about the Vipassana yogi and how to cut off the sap of the kilesas, how to cut the cycles. Just like when one is trying to cut down trees in a teak forest, one has to kill the tree by cutting off the supply of nourishment, cutting off the flow of moisture from the earth and from the air. So in doing so, one has to wring the tree about 2 feet above the ground. And that's how one cuts off the sap for a physical tree. But when one practices, then the gross kilesas, the cycle of kilesas, avijja, tanha, and upadana, ignorance, craving, and clinging, does not arise. And thus, the cycle of actions also does not arise, kamavata. Good and bad actions are not performed based on the cycle of kilesas. And therefore, results, good and bad, will not come. The cycle of kilesas the cycle of results comes to an end. For yogis who are practicing respectfully, they are getting this result. And Sayadaw will continue this topic tomorrow. That's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.